I am thrilled to be back for another week of Your Brand Amplified. I'm Annika Jackson, and I'm here with Lauren Fonvielle. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here with you today.
I'm so happy, and looking at everything in your background makes me so happy.
Yeah, this
I
is
have,
my Zen space.
yes, I can tell. So I'd love for you to share your journey. We haven't had anyone talk about what you're going to discuss today,
Okay.
but I think it's something that every business owner and entrepreneur needs to understand and know how to use.
Yeah.
So that's my little tease, and I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah. So I am an integrative energy practitioner, and I specialize on helping small business owners and entrepreneurs manage their anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and sometimes even chronic pain, because a lot of the time
Mhm.
there are emotional contributors to physical pain. And I do that through this technique called the emotional freedom technique. And the emotional freedom technique is a process where you gently are tapping on certain points of the body while acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling.
Mm.
And doing so is so incredibly important in order to really allow yourself to hold space for how you're feeling. And I think in this day and age, we are also used to just pushing forward and go, go, go. And I think
Mhm.
entrepreneurs and business owners in particular, like that's, you put the blinders on and you just keep pushing forward. And sometimes that can really catch up with you, both physically and emotionally, and it affects how you show up in your business. And so addressing the emotional side of business is an important thing to do.
100%. But before you became an integrative energy practitioner, what was your life like and what were you doing?
Yeah, so I was in corporate marketing,
Mm.
and then I became a business coach after making a move, a physical location. We moved from Virginia to Delaware, and I was ready to do something different. And
Mhm.
I started doing business coaching, and yeah, like it was interesting in doing that work. I was also on my own personal journey with anxiety and stress,
Mhm.
and that's how I came to find a variety of different modalities, but particularly EFT. And so when I was doing my business coaching work, and stuff would always come up with people, whether it was a fear about trying something new in their
Mhm.
business, or getting up in front of people and feeling nervous about that. And so I naturally started to incorporate. I was like, hey, you want to try this thing called tapping with me?
Mhm.
And some people were like, that sounds weird. And I would explain, yeah, I know, I thought it was weird when I first got introduced to it too. But that's kind of how I transitioned from doing the business stuff strictly to then incorporating in more of this emotional freedom technique. And yeah, kind of a blend of the two.
I think that's the best modality though, is when you can blend the two together. I'm a big believer in, yeah, I mean, even feng shui, all of those things, because the way that you create your space, and for tapping, it's kind of the same, the way that you're thinking about things and processing things, like, as you said, in your body, often it's because of something that we're a fear, or we're stressed or anxious. I know I did a tapping course that was about, money
Mhm.
and barriers that people have around money. And so I have a small introduction to it. And that's why I was really excited to have you on to kind of dive deeper into different techniques people can use to help reduce all the stresses and all the things as we're trying to, I mean, and you know this from being a business owner yourself, like we're entrenched in every aspect of our businesses, like all the stuff that we don't like doing or don't know how to do as well, from finance, business setup, all of those things, to then working with our clients and trying to balance all of that with whatever else we have going on in our lives.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the like aha moments that people have had when you've used tapping as a strategy?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I think it's feeling more comfortable in your body. And I think
Mm.
so many of us are so used to dealing with chronic stress that it quote unquote becomes normal, right? It's like that you're running on empty, right? And that kind of becomes the normal feeling. And so it's creating this reset so that you feel better in your body. And you know, a lot of the time when we're talking about entrepreneurs, you know, like you were saying before, the things that are going on in your business also impact how you're showing up with your family and your loved ones. And so taking time to address the emotions that are coming up, whether it's stuff that you're worried about at work or the stuff that's going on at home, which is also impacting, you know, it goes both ways. And, you know, tapping can help with such a wide variety of conditions, from anxiety and stress to chronic pain, if you're somebody that suffers with something like fibromyalgia, and limiting beliefs, you know, those lovely little thoughts that go through our head that keep us stuck. And it can help with that too. And just managing all of the stress of having to like juggle everything at one time. It's really a tool that helps you to regulate your nervous system. And when you can regulate your nervous system and feel calmer in your body, then you can think more clearly and you can make better decisions. And who doesn't want that, right?
Right, exactly. And there's a certain rhythm to tapping, right? Do you do the same, because you tap on certain areas of the body, and do you follow the same pattern every time, or does it depend on what you're working on or dealing with?
Yeah, so that's a very common question. So when you're tapping on certain points, and I'll always tell people there's no wrong way of tapping. So typically we do what's called tapping, a round of tapping, and it's tapping on the same points over and over. So you're not tapping on specific points to deal with specific, you know, problems or issues you're having. It's always just the same points that you're tapping on. What does change is the words that you're using, and that's a big important thing to talk about with tapping, is that, you know, you need to be mindful of how you're feeling and then what you're thinking, and then using those words to create phrases. And we say those phrases as we are tapping on the points. And when I describe it tapping, because it can sound very strange, right? Like people are like, okay, this idea we're going to tap on ourselves and I'm going to talk about how I feel, and that's supposed to make me feel better. Like that sounds so weird, you know? And so I understand that, because I felt that way too. I was very skeptical. But when I describe it to people, I like to compare it to acupuncture, because people are more familiar with acupuncture.
Okay.
So when you go to an acupuncturist, they take those tiny little needles and they put them in at certain points of the body. And the points of the body that they put them in at are the end points of the meridians. And the meridians are how energy moves through the body. So just like how our blood moves through our blood vessels, our energy moves through our meridians. Now, if you were to go to get a scan of your body, your meridians are not going to show up right on the scan. However, it is something that is widely used in, you know, Chinese medicine. And so instead of using needles, we are applying light acupressure on some of these same points. And then that added component of saying out loud how you're feeling, you know, and that can help, because I think, especially as business owners, sometimes and as humans, we are thinking the same thoughts over and over every single day, right? And so sometimes when you take the time to say out loud, speak out loud what it is that you're saying to yourself, you almost get this different perspective of it. You can kind of zoom out on it and be like, wait a second, that seems silly, or that's not really true. You know, you start to think about things a little bit differently. And it's really interesting how it works, because as you're tapping on these points, your subconscious mind is able to kind of start to bring things up. So sometimes it brings up memories of the past that you don't even think are related to whatever issue it is that you're dealing with now. And it gives you a road to go down to explore, to see how that really is impacting you, because we oftentimes will, you know, we suppress these things. Like when we experience something in our lives that doesn't feel quote unquote good, right? When we're talking about emotions like anger, frustration, sadness, we tend to stuff them down, is what I say. You know, we push it down, and then we distract ourselves with something else. And so if something crazy is going on at work, maybe you're throwing yourself into doing stuff with your kids, or maybe like you're throwing yourself on your couch and drinking some extra wine or something to make yourself not feel those feelings. And so tapping is this process to allow you to really hold the space to feel the feelings so that you can move through them so that they're not constantly nagging at you and continuing to bother you.
Hmm. And is this something that you would recommend as a daily practice for somebody who's looking to, 'cause I know like personally, I'm trying to get better about time blocking and making sure that I do certain things. Like when I wake up in the morning, I'll listen to a subliminal while I'm walking the dogs. And it just really seems to help me kind of reframe and shift my mindset. But I think it's always good to think about like other things that you can do to help start your day or in the middle of the day. Cause because we're so bad about taking breaks,
Mhm.
because we just want to get everything done before we have to move on to our family life or whatever else is next. Uh,
Yeah. I would definitely recommend, even just a few minutes a day of
mhm.
tapping and talking about whatever it is that you're feeling, because this is a tool that can be used proactively in that way of just doing it on a daily basis, but then it can also be done reactively. So if something happens, and you feel that stress and anxiety starting to rise up, or you feel like a panic attack starting to come on, these or that anger or whatever intense emotion starting to kind of like well up in your body, this is a tool that you can use to help calm that nervous system, because there is a lot of science behind what's happening internally. So as you're tapping on these points, what's happening is that it's sending a message to the amygdala in the brain, and the amygdala is the part of the brain that controls fight or flight. So when
Mm,
we're in a state of when we're in danger, right, that amygdala is going off and firing off so that we can fight back or we can run away. But when
mhm.
we're talking about chronic stress and anxiety, that alarm, that amygdala can be going off constantly, which is like putting you in that constant feeling of stress and overwhelm, and that is not
No.
healthy. So when we're tapping on these points, what's happening? It's sending a message to the amygdala, and it's saying, "Hey, you do not need to be in fight or flight right now, right? You're not in a fight for your life right now."
Mhm.
And there's a Dr. Peta Stapleton has done a variety of studies, and one of her studies showed that it reduced the amount of cortisol pumping through the body by up to 43%, which is a
Wow.
really big number. So if simply tapping and breathing and acknowledging how you're feeling, it's a pretty simple act once you learn where the points are and how to do it, can reduce that cortisol, which is the stress hormone. You're going to begin to feel calmer in your body, because when we're under that kind of stress, that constant stress, sometimes, I mean, I know I've been there before. You get to that point where you're like, I can't even think straight, right? Like your brain can't even work. And that's really because that all of that cortisol, your prefrontal cortex has gone offline, and that amygdala is just firing the cortisol. So this is a tool to help bring that prefrontal cortex back online so that
Mhm.
you can feel calmer and think more clearly.
Mm. And besides working with clients through your coaching and then teaching them these techniques as part of that practice, do you also teach, group sessions or courses or things where you're really going into this modality and helping people think about what phrases to use? Or do you have, those like little cheat sheet lists of if you're feeling this, you can do this practice?
Yes. So I do group work, and I call them tapping circles.
Oh, nice.
And I also put out weekly, I put out YouTube videos, and they're on different topics. So it's something that you can, tap along with. I will
Mm.
say this though, and there's lots of people that do those tapping videos. If you go to YouTube and you type in EFT or tapping and any type of emotion, you'll find some sort of video where you can tap along with it. But the thing to be mindful of if you're doing that is noticing if the words that the practitioner is using are words that you really resonate with,
Mhm.
because a big part of tapping is using words that really resonate with you. And so what the
Mm.
practitioner is saying might feel a little off from what you're feeling. And so if that's the case, I always encourage people to use your own words. It's a great way to kind of get started, learn where the points are, but really learning how to use your own words and tap into how you are feeling is a big part of what makes this work really work.
Mm. What continues to inspire and motivate you from going from corporate marketing to business coaching you know, to using energy work as part of your business coaching?
Yeah, really just seeing the results like that my clients are getting is what really inspires me. I mean, I had a woman come to me who is an accountant, and she was just really, really unhappy in her job, really,
Mhm.
really frustrated, felt stuck, felt like she couldn't leave. And we did a lot of tapping work together, which helped her to like set boundaries to feel
Hmm.
more comfortable when she was in the office. And then probably 6 months later, after working together, she was able to really tap into this feeling of confidence and doing things from a new place. She ended up leaving that job, starting her own business, and
Wow.
really, yeah, chasing her dream. Like, yeah, helping people to really tap into to their truth, and really feel that feeling of empowerment to move forward. I mean, so rewarding for me.
That is very rewarding. Do you primarily work with women who are feeling stuck, whether they're in a corporate job or entrepreneurs, or and are there specific categories that you work with, or?
Yeah, I really work with mostly women who are dealing with anxiety and stress, whether that anxiety is coming from something that's going on with their business, or if it's something, going on in their life. Sometimes it's a limiting belief that they know is holding them back, or even
Mhm.
a fear of something. And yeah, it's such an organic experience of them sharing what they've got going on and tapping. And so one session could be about the business, one session could be about something that happened with their family. But yeah, a lot of the time it's women who are looking to try and really feel better in their bodies and find that balance between work and home.
Yeah. Well, this might be a little strange, but I was wondering if you would want to demonstrate
Yeah.
tapping. I don't know if you could ask that. And I was like, I didn't ask you that beforehand, but now we're putting these on YouTube as well. So I think it could be interesting for if somebody's listening audibly to kind of
Yeah.
walk them through what an experience could be like. But then on the video, people will be able to see and kind of walk along with us.
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes I find it helpful for people to really feel the difference when we focus on something physical
Hmm.
to start. So whether we could do one of two things, I'll ask you what you want to do.
Okay.
You can either do, if you're feeling something, so a lot of people, when we talk about stress, they feel that stress, physically in their bodies. I know for me, with my journey with this, I was really dealing with bad TMJ pain
Hmm.
and like feeling tension in my neck and my shoulders. So sometimes we could do some tapping on that, on something physical, in the physical pain associated with stress, or we could do something. We could do what's called a restricted breathing exercise,
Hmm.
where everybody takes a nice deep breath in, and you focus on how the breath feels. Like, how easy is it to get the breath, or how challenging is it for you to get the breath? Like, do you feel like the tension? And then you give yourself a rating with either way that we go, and then we tap and see if that number comes down.
Oh, let's do the first one.
This one. Okay. So you will be my echo, right? So
Okay.
what I'll do, we'll chat a little bit, and then I'm gonna say a sentence, and I'm gonna tell everybody where we're tapping, and then you would repeat the sentence. So anybody that's going to be tapping along with us, I would encourage them, if possible, if they're in a place where they feel comfortable, where they could speak it out loud. There's power in speaking it out loud, as opposed to just like saying the words in your head.
Hmm.
So, are you experiencing any physical pain in your body right now?
Yes.
Okay, what are you feeling?
I'm feeling, I always hold it in my like upper back between my shoulder blades kind of, and then my lower back.
Okay. And how would you describe the feeling of the sensation that you have right now in your back?
Constricted binding.
Okay. Okay. So now if I say anything, I'm going to try to reflect back to you some of the things that you've said to me. If I say something that doesn't feel right, we can always change the words. So just let me
Okay.
know. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how constricted does it feel in your back? How intense is that
Mm.
sensation for you?
Um, Maybe a 6.
A 6. Okay. Okay. So the goal would be to see how that number shifts.
Hmm.
I really would want the number to move down. So we'll see
Okay.
how it goes. Okay. So we're going to start on the pinky side of the hand. So I'm using my right hand to gently tap on the pinky side of my left hand, but you can do it vice versa too. So if you're a
Okay.
lefty and you want to tap on the right side of your, the pinky side of your right hand, you can do that too. And so we're going to say a sentence 3 times here. So I'll say it and then you'll repeat me. Even though I feel this tension in my back,
Even though I feel this tension in my back,
right here, right now, I'm honoring how I feel.
right here, right now, I'm honoring how I feel.
Even though it feels constricted in my back,
Even though it feels constricted in my back,
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Even though I feel this constriction, would you say like, you pointed to like the upper part of your back, like what would you, how would you describe that part? Like in the shoulder blades or like up by the neck or?
Shoulder blades. Yeah.
Even though I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades,
Even though I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades,
I love and accept myself.
I love and accept myself.
Okay, then we're going to move to the top of the head. So just gently patting right the crown of the head. This constriction in my shoulder blades.
This constriction in my shoulder blades.
Coming to the start of the eyebrows on both eyes. I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
I'm going to move to the sides of the eyes. This constriction in my shoulder blades.
This constriction in my shoulder blades.
And we'll move under the eyes. I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
Under the nose. I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
Onto the crease of the chin. I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
And then we're going to come to the collarbone. So like the fleshy area right underneath the collarbone on both sides. I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
I feel this constriction in my shoulder blades.
And then we're going to go under the arm. So for women, it's the center of the bra strap. And for men, it's about 2 inches down from the armpit. This constriction in my shoulder blades.
This constriction in my shoulder blades.
And then the last point is between the pinky and the ring finger on the back of the hand. And I like to bring my hand onto my chest. This constriction in my shoulder blades.
This constriction in my shoulder blades.
And then just pause there and take a nice deep breath in. And let it go. So that was one round of tapping.
Okay.
And so after just one round, maybe you notice a difference, maybe not, and that's okay. And that's for anybody that's tapping along with us. Do you notice any sort of shift after? Or
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. How does it feel different to you?
I feel like I can take a deeper breath when we did the breath exercise.
Okay, great. And so I think you said it was a 6 before. Is that what you? Would you say it's still a 6, or what would you number wise? What would you say it's at?
I would definitely say it's going down from the 6. Yeah, so like a 5 point something.
Okay. And so that's great. And for some people, when you bring your attention to something, you can notice like, oh, it even feels more intense. So that sometimes for some people, the number will go up, right? So if like you've been avoiding feeling something and then you're bringing your attention to it, sometimes it can feel more intense. And I just want to share that in case anybody is experiencing that right now, because that's totally normal. And it can continue. If you continue to tap, it will go down. It's actually an indicator that tapping will work for you. Just keep tapping.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So those are the points that you would do every time. And then you said you can do multiple rounds.
Yeah. So then I would ask you, like, as we were tapping on that, did any thoughts come up about anything? When you're first starting to tap, sometimes it's like, you're just so focused on finding the points and following along, you're not paying attention to your thoughts. But questions would be like, did any particular thoughts come up, or any memories come up, or how long have you been dealing with this pain that that have this tension in your neck? How does it make you feel that you've been dealing with this pain? Those sorts of things. And so we use the answers to those questions to create new sentences or phrases, and we continue to tap. And so it's really this process of following the breadcrumbs or connecting the dots. And a lot of the time, what what you think might be the issue, right? Like maybe you're just like feeling all that stress in your neck and shoulders and you think it's because of your workload or
Hmm.
something like that. Whereas a thought could come up that to you feels completely unrelated,
Hmm.
even from a really long time ago. And that was my personal experience when I started when I worked with a practitioner for the first time. And when I found out this was something that could help with pain, we were really working on my TMJ pain and on how frustrated I was with it, and how it brought up feelings of anger for me, because of the pain started for me when I got my wisdom teeth out.
Oh,
And I had a lot of anger towards my dentist, which I didn't realize I was still holding
oh
on
my
to
gosh.
15
Wow.
years later. Yeah. And then this feeling of feeling betrayed by the dentist because I didn't know he actually dislocated my jaw to take my wisdom teeth out, and I did not know that he was going to do that. So this
Oh,
feeling of betrayal came up, and then this is where I had a thought that I didn't think was related. I had this memory of being betrayed in a friendship. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that happened at a completely different time in my life. That's not related to this. But the practitioner was like, well, that's coming up for a reason, right? Like my subconscious mind is bringing that memory back for a reason. So let's explore it. And so we tapped on that memory of that betrayal of that friendship, and ultimately, ended with the session me feeling sad about losing that friendship. So
oh,
what started with me feeling really frustrated that I'm dealing with this pain and like the anxiety that's causing the pain ends up with me feeling sad about losing a friendship. I never would have connected those dots on my own. But then when I checked back in with the pain, I had gone from an 8 to a 2. And it blew my
remarkable.
mind. And that's
Yeah.
why yeah, I mean, that's why I continued to really explore this work and do it, because it can be very powerful like that if you are really willing to sit with the emotion of how you're feeling and go there.
Yeah. But I think that is something that, especially in the last few years, more and more talking about mental health and having, and really talking about there's maybe not balance. You can't necessarily have work-life balance all the time, but ways to de-stress and ways to really take care of ourselves has become so much more at the forefront of our minds. And I think we have to weave different modalities into our normal days just to be able to get to the next level, just to be able to do things that before, as you mentioned, we would just squash it all down. But then when is it going to come up? And how is that going to affect your life, your family, your business at that time?
Right, exactly. Because whatever it is that you're doing to distract yourself is only going to work for so long.
Mhm.
And all of that emotion is going to come roaring out in some way, and maybe that is you lashing out at somebody that doesn't deserve it,
Mhm.
or maybe it comes out physically, because a lot of the time that's what happens. This emotion builds up and then comes out physically, and sometimes we don't listen to it at first,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I'm just going to push through, like I'm going to push through the pain, it's going to go away, it's going to go,
Mhm.
and it's done. And then sometimes it doesn't, and you then have to be, one of the things I like to say is that if you don't listen, you need to listen to your body when she's whispering so that you don't hear her scream. And,
Yes.
if we don't listen to those whispers, we will end up dealing with, with all the screaming later. And nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be in pain.
Yeah. And I think as women, we often forget about our own health because we're taking care of everybody else around us, right? We are the caregivers. And so, I, what you just said, I was thinking back to when I had my gallbladder removed. And then I looked back and I was like, oh, I've been having symptoms of this manifest over the last few years, but
Mm,
I didn't realize it. I was like, oh, maybe I, ate some bad food or this or that happened. And then it just got to the point where I had to get it removed immediately.
right.
So if when we don't listen to our bodies and we don't deal with things, bad stuff can happen. That
Mhm.
energy is just festering inside.
Yeah, like, and our emotions are how our body is communicating with us,
Mm.
because the definition of emotion is energy in motion. So
Mhm.
our emotions want to move, and the way that they move is by us holding space and allowing ourselves to feel them. And sometimes that can be really scary for people, because you know it can be scary to allow yourself to feel the anger or allow yourself to feel the sadness. Some of my clients will say they feel like they're not going to be able to come back from that if they allow themselves to go there.
Mm, wow.
Like it's like diving off the deep end. And but what in reality is if you allow yourself to sit with the emotion, it loses that power. You allow yourself to feel it so that you can move through it. And then it's not
Mhm.
festering in there. It's like it wants to move. It needs to move. It doesn't want to be stagnant in your body.
Yeah.
And so it's figuring out how to get it to move. And, one of my favorite modalities is EFT and tapping, but, you can also find other things that work for you too, like Reiki or sound healing or yoga or going for a walk or
Mm.
dancing, whatever whatever it is that's going to help you feel better. That's what this is really all about, figuring out what's going to make you feel best in your body.
Nice. And I'm imagining now that we have this virtual world that you are able to work with clients from everywhere, and you might do some in person, but do you do tapping circles virtually as well?
Yes, yeah. So I do. The majority of my clients are all virtual, and we meet on Zoom. And then yes, I do host virtual tapping circles.
Hmm,
And then if you are in Delaware, I do see clients in person as well.
okay. And what is next for you and your business?
Yeah, I am just excited to continue to spread the word about EFT and tapping because it's not something that I feel like the majority of people know about. And yeah, so my goal is just to continue to share it with more people, doing talks and getting the word out,
Nice.
because figuring out what works for you is what's important. And so if what I always encourage people, if something piques your curiosity, don't shove it down and ignore it. That's happening for a reason. Go
Mm,
explore it. And
mhm.
that's what I want to help people do.
Awesome. Lauren, how do people find you if they want to learn more about your tapping circles or working with you and just learn more about how to free themselves using these techniques?
Yeah, so my website is mindshiftwithlauren.com. And I do have a free masterclass that really goes into the science behind tapping,
Hmm,
what it is, why it works. And you can access that by going to mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass.
okay.
There's also an events page on my website, so you can see all the upcoming events that are going on.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'll share those in the show notes as well so people can find you very easily. And I always like to ask people for their favorite mantra or quote.
Hmm. My favorite mantra, I like to say, peace begins within me.
Mm, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, I certainly feel very peaceful after speaking to you today.
Awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah. And being able to look at your beautiful background, very calming. So, Lauren, thank you so much for being on. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
The one thing that I always like to tell people is that the answers really truly are all within,
Mhm.
and you just need to figure out how to access them and find the tool that helps you to do so, and that it's okay to ask for help. And but yeah, the answers are all within.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Such a pleasure. And I was really excited to dive into something and teach our audience something they probably don't know about. And that can be a really great part of their practice and figuring out how to move forward in this crazy life that we have. So thank you again for being on the show. Thank you to our audience for coming back for another week. And I will be back again next week with another episode of Your Brand Amplified.